Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today we have with us Dr. Timothy York. Many of you know him as the longtime moderator of the National Association of Free Will Baptists. He's also the pastor of two churches at the same time. One is the Grove there in Smyrna, Tennessee, and also we have in Antioch, Tennessee, the Rejoice Church. Some of you have worked with him through the Shepherding Initiative, where he tries to help churches that do not have pastors. He really has a heart for our people and a heart for our churches. So, Dr. York, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, we are in the midst of October, and in October we have Pastor Appreciation Month, and as your duties, you pastor churches, you pastor two churches right now, you also work with a whole lot of churches that are without pastors. What do you suggest that we do to better support our pastors?
Well, I will say this, Pastor Appreciation Month is either a high or a low for a guy, because with social media, he now knows everybody's celebrating these other pastors, and I didn't get celebrated. I think it's really important for our pastors to feel appreciated. It's a different time in pastoring, and so a lot of guys we're learning are struggling with staying in the ministry, staying in the pastorate. They feel like failures instead of successes. And so it's really important for the church people to show love back to them, especially on a month like this, to say, hey, we appreciate you. We appreciate your family. And here's how we want to bless you and help you. And that has many different aspects to it. But I just encourage people to give them gifts and send them cards and, do many different things for them.
So I've got a pastor. Maybe he's a new pastor at our church. Maybe he's been there for many, many years. It might help me to stop and think, what would happen to my church? What would happen to the place I worship at if we did not have a pastor? What happens to churches when they don't have pastors?
They go long periods of time without a pastor. When you think about the Shepherd Initiative here, we're providing video sermons for churches because they can't find a pastor. Churches are struggling with this whole issue. And so encouraging the people you have, the person you have, is so important. And letting them know you celebrate them. Mm-hmm. Because all of us, you say, well, the Lord blesses them. They shouldn't have to, that sounds so spiritual. But they're humans. They're really, and they need encouragement. Their families need that encouragement. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed at the difference in a man's personality if he's appreciated in a pastorate versus if he's struggling with people in the pastorate.
That's great. So we think about our pastor. We think about what he does day in and day out. We think about pastors as part of the denomination because we have men who pastor churches. They equip their people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. They feed their people. But if we don't have pastors, eventually those churches die. If the churches die, eventually we can't support colleges, we can't support missions. Really, the foundation is the health of that pastor in order for us to have a healthy denomination.
If you go back to the New Testament, we often don't use this, but Paul writes to Timothy, not to the church, but to Timothy. He writes to Titus, not to the church, but to Titus. Now, he does write to the church at Ephesus and Colossae. We understand that. But it's interesting that even when Jesus speaks to the churches of Asia, he addresses the angel of the church, not the church, which the word messenger, pastor, we often believe is that terminology. It's that messenger that God has given you, that shepherd, under shepherd, who leads through the word of God. Nobody knows what he really goes through. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see him on Sunday. It looks like a pretty easy job. He gets up and talks for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And if it's Sunday night, Wednesday night. But nobody knows the real battle when there's tragedy in people's lives, or there's things that you can't talk about, or difficult passages to deal with. Mm-hmm. And all that's a part of being a really good shepherd. And so And it's a lot easier to be a good shepherd to good sheep than it is to be a good shepherd to bad sheep or goats,
So let's unpack that a little bit. We want to be good sheep.
Yes.
So we want to be the kind of sheep that when our pastor sees us, he's a bit encouraged by that. His family is, the pastor's wife is got a better feel. How is it that I can be a good sheep, if you will?
One of the things I would say from personal experience over the years is when you year-round, be encouraging to your pastor. Don't be so nitpicky. Don't always be looking for the negative. Find the positives. Even if there are negatives, deal with them biblically and cautiously, not out of emotion. People you deal with who deal with emotion can really be harmful to a pastor. Because here's the truth. There could be 100 people walk out the door and shake my hand on Sunday with positive statements. Mm-hmm. But that one person with the negative statement is the one I take home all day long. And so I just encourage you, be as positive as you can. Now, be honest, but be positive. I think another thing that would really help good sheep is if you, throughout the year, gave, just not always has to be a monetary gift. It can just be a card or, we appreciate you. We're thinking of you. We're praying for you. I had a man stop me in the parking lot a few weeks ago at a hospital. He said, "Pastor, I don't go to your church, but you're on my prayer list every day." Now, that was encouraging to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how many of my people are praying every day for me. And so I think it's important that we encourage them in those ways. And for a pastor's wife, they're lonely. Sometimes they don't have friends. It's hard to be friends with people in the church. And so I think encouraging them and the children are vital. All three of my kids are in ministry. And I believe it's not always Phyllis and I that did that, but it's the good folks in our churches who have blessed us that helped our kids see the good in that.
Mm-hmm. Good sheep, lots of good sheep.
Lots of good sheep.
And so you're listening, you're thinking, I could do that. I could be an encourager to my pastor. You talked about the gifts that are given out. We deal with a lot of churches that are without pastors. And I know sometimes you'll talk about different activities they engage in. What is it that a church can do to make themselves appealing to a pastor, or also it's another way of being an encouragement to their pastor?
Well, I think one of the things a church without a pastor could do, activity they could do, is really begin to pray, be a praying church. And when we say that, but we mean it in a real, true gathering sense. You're praying not just for the pastor, but for direction and for guidance and for God to touch your heart and get you engaged. Because it's a lot easier to pastor engaged people than it is disengaged people. I tell folks, I believe the greatest hindrance to the growth of the church is what I call the weekend traveler warrior, the person who's gone all the time on a trip here, on a trip there on the weekends. They don't realize that sucks the life out of the church. And so we've got to be very careful that we're faithful to church, that we're praying, that we're involved in all the things that really help build a local church.
So being an engaged sheep, if you will,
Sure.
to be, number one, to be there. My own presence in the church, what can I do to be an encourager?
Well, I think, for many years I was a parishioner. I was an evangelist, so I attended a local church. And I always wanted to make sure my pastor had what he needed financially. If there was sickness in his home, we were really careful to give special gifts from our family to them or take meals. I think also one of the things that you can do in times of, as an individual, is always make sure their back is covered. That if there is a negativity being said, you stand up for them in a positive way, not in a harsh way, but you're always there for them. You're helping them. You're encouraging them. I remember a very difficult time in my life. I had the church was doing well, but I got down. I was about ready to quit. And it was the first time I went to Africa. I came back from Africa, and I had about decided I was done at the church at the time. And I don't know how those guys knew it, but on a Sunday night, 20 of my men said to me, "Pastor, can we buy your dinner tomorrow night?" Now, they knew something. I don't know how they knew it, but they knew it. And I think it's spiritual. I think they were spiritual men who followed leadership of the Lord. So we go out and have dinner together, just the men. And each man took time around that table to tell me what I meant to him and how I'd helped his family. That was, I don't want to ever take away from the gifts that you give a pastor. By the way, if you don't know what to give him, money always works. Money is never refused. But that was a real blessing. That was that helped me get through some tough times.
So one key is letting a pastor know, this is how you have helped me. This is what I appreciate about you. And you may be thinking, well, I can't really do that or take my pastor out to eat, but you can put it in a card or you could send it in a text. Although I do think it's better to write it, to have a means of either the words are heard or it's written in some way. But let's do kind of unpack that a bit. Things are different now than they have been in the past with the social media and all the rest of it. What role does that have in supporting a pastor?
Well, it's easy to get beat up on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, people say things on social media, and I scratch my head and go, do you realize we're all reading this?
Yes.
And they say bad things about the pastor. They'll say things negative about their church or the music at their church. I just think it's really important that we not jump on that bandwagon, that we learn this is relational. I am not going to get on Facebook and criticize my spouse. No matter what happens, I'm not going to criticize. I'm not going on Facebook and criticize my kids or my grandkids. That needs to be the same way with the church. That this is our pastor. This is a relationship we have. And we want to make sure he is, if we got a problem, we talk to him about it. If he's encouraged us, we want to let him know. Lady stopped me at the door last Sunday. And she said, I just want you to know, I appreciate you for the way you study, the way you're prepared. I'm learning like I've never learned before in church. And I walked away going, wow, successful day.
That's right.
Even though it wasn't as successful as I'd like for it to have been, at least we're doing something. Absolutely.
So keep it within yourself, really.
Yes.
Don't share negative thoughts on social media. Hey, you can share some positive thoughts. You can quote something your pastor said or talk about how he has been helpful, talk about his family in a positive manner, which is kind of cool too. What about it seems like it's easy to kind of promote the famous pastors, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of our guys live in the shadow of these men. You talk about, well, so-and-so says this, and you quote that, or you're always promoting your favorite author or TV or podcast guy. Your pastor needs that kind of promotion as well. He needs you out in the community talking about how good he is and how faithful he is to the Scripture and what your church is doing for you. And sometimes the rock star guy's not going to preach your funeral. He's not going to marry your children. He's not going to get up in the middle of the night and meet you somewhere when you're in trouble. But the guy every week who faithfully serves his community, his church, that's the guy who will be there. And so I said to a church recently, a church committee, there are a lot of good pastors who aren't good preachers.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good preachers who aren't good pastors. And so that man who pastors that church, he needs your faithfulness to him in a way, not in a idle way. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just good, solid Christian faith and dodging away from the stardom of the popular guys.
And you said it good when you mentioned the guy that's going to see you in the hospital, the guy that's going to do your funeral. You want to really support that particular person. And ways they can do that: invite people to church and talk well about the church. All those things are a great encouraging.
If I don't get anything for pastor appreciation, I'll be okay. But if you'll bring somebody to church,
it's a different deal, isn't it?
That makes the ball game. If you will, if you'll touch somebody's heart and we begin to see God do something in somebody else's life, that's a different. It's more than the material. Mm-hmm. Now, again, like I said earlier, don't degrade that, because that's part of the encouragement. But really, when you think about the people who bless my life the most in ministry, are the people who come alongside and help me.
Yes.
Walked with me and been there for me. I think about a guy many years ago when I first started pastoring. He didn't have two nickels to rub together. I doubt he ever gave me a monetary gift. But he knew how to encourage me in a way that was very helpful. A prayer warrior. He brought people to church. He was involved in the church. And so there's just something about that.
There's something that makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does.
So you're listening. It's October. Do not forget your pastor. Do not forget his family. Do what you can to honor him during this month, to support him. A lot of practical advice Dr. York has given us today. And
can I give one more?
Absolutely.
One more. I'm going to say this, and if your church does it, I didn't know about it. A lot of our churches will have a pastor appreciation dinner. But they don't give anything. They don't give a gift. They don't. In other words, they had a dinner for themselves and said, "Oh yeah, this is for our pastor." Be careful about that. Make sure what you're doing. Yeah, the whole church has a dinner. We often do that at our churches that I've pastored. But there's always more to it than that. And so make sure there's something else in there.
That's good. Good advice. Well, hey, thank you for sharing that with us.
We good to be here.
Appreciate it.
And love our pastors. And
Absolutely.
Appreciate them.
Thank you for what you do for our pastors. Thank you for what you're doing for our denomination. It's truly making a difference, and it truly does matter.
It is.
Yes. And we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Please do what you can to support your pastor. You can find more information at NAFWB.org. Look at some of the graphics. You could do /graphics. Share some of that information that's there on the NAFWB Facebook page in English and Spanish. And make sure that your pastor and his family knows that you greatly appreciate them. And please remember, every little thing you do, it really does matter. It really does make a difference when we're doing it for the Lord. We truly are better when we work together. Thank you.